dead, but I'm alive. Oh, they say this is the new day. Oh, my friends, won't you show me the way?
That's right. We're going to show you the way. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. What you were just hearing is Adam Ate the Apple, 30 seconds of their latest album, which is, of course, If You Peg a Parrot, you get a parrot. Brad. If you get a peg, you get a parrot. Okay. It's a pirate reference. And by the way, they're great friends of mine. Adam Ate the Apple, the lead singer, Dan Prokorak, is a good friend. He's been on the program before, and we are very happy to have promoted some of his music there. We'll try and have some more of that on later in the show. Separate of that, let's get into it. Today, folks, if you haven't been here before, we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. As long as the internet overlords allow, talking about everything that matters, you get to speak to us. That's right. You can reach us on your text and your chat. You can call into the show at 607-242-1582 and reach us. Let's get into the big issues that are affecting us all right now. First, I want to do a little bit of a PSA, public service announcement. If you ever get a notice like this in the mail, for those of you who own websites and you happen to own something where you own a website and you get one of these domain registry emails, do not respond to this. This is one of the most overpriced, ridiculous ideas I've ever heard. This organization, give.com, they're trying to charge you $50 for registering. No. If you've gone to wherever you got your domain at, like GoDaddy, it's $17.99 a year. That's it. You don't need to spend $50, $90, $100. These things they send you in the mail, that is spam. It is a ripoff, and it annoys me. When I got this, it just pissed me off trying to steal my money. So I just want people to know about that. Separate of that. So I'm thinking we should start with the Black Superman, although there is more news that has just come out about Governor Andrew Cuomo and the second allegation of sexual abuse that has been placed against him. And I'm not sure which one is more interesting to most people. Is it the Black Superman or Andrew Cuomo? And I think the signal's coming across. Well, I know last week we had a lot of problems with YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. They didn't like the subjects we were talking about. I'm pretty sure this week we're getting the signal through a lot better. And I say that we start very simply with something a little lighthearted as we get into the more serious subjects of Andrew Cuomo, sexual abuse, removing him, talking about Joe Biden and the war in Syria, talking about what's going to be happening with the next stimulus check. So let's go to this. Have you heard about this, by the way, folks? Have you heard about the fact that there is going to be a Black Superman? I mean, it sounds kind of ridiculous to me, if you ask me. A Black Superman? Are you kidding? Are you serious? Why? I mean, seriously, why? Why do we need a Black Superman? I don't know any reason why we would need to have Superman to be black. I mean, if you're not into Superman, and I'm just trying to get an image of this for you so you can have an idea of what we're talking about here. But if you're not into Superman already, then what's the point? I mean, seriously, what is the point? Superman's been around for, 70 years? There's been TV shows, there's been comic books, there's been movies for decades upon decades, over and over again. He's been reinvented several times. And now they want to make Superman black? What's the point? I mean, if you don't like Superman at this point, if you don't believe in truth in the American way, then changing his color is not going to suddenly make you become interested in truth and the American way. It's just not going to happen. I mean, are we joking with anyone? Is it the idea that, well, if we make Superman black, then all the black audiences that watched Wakanda and the Black Panther, well, they're all going to come storming on in. They're just going to come and watch Superman. No, they're not. No, they're not. And I understand there are things, stupid movies like, what was that, Soul Plane, that made its money back. I mean, it was ridiculous. The movie, one of the worst movies ever created, made its money back and then some. It's the blaxploitation version of films these days. And you just change the sex or gender of, the race or gender of some pre-existing character, and suddenly everyone's supposed to go, oh my God, yes, this is so wonderful. I want to see that movie now because we changed the color of someone. You changed their gender. Thor 4 is supposed to have a female Thor. Now I'm going to be interested in Thor. No, I'm not. Oh, Superman's black. Now I'm going to be interested in Superman. No, I'm not. I could care less. I know. Now, this could just be me. Oh. Excuse me. Ow. Now, it could just be me. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe I just don't get it. And that's quite possible. I could be completely misunderstanding it. I could be just, I don't see the appeal there. Maybe you see the appeal. I mean, seriously, folks. I mean, I'm hearing the comments here. The comments are all over the place. I'm tired of all the race bending of superheroes I grew up with when there were superheroes out there for each race. Oh God. That's one of the comments in the subreddit. I think it's just something that's absolutely ridiculous because I don't see a reason for it. It doesn't make sense. But of course, if you do see something that makes sense, it does make sense to you, please do comment. You can comment, let us know what you think about that. If you think that you're going to see Superman, now that you know that Superman is going to be black, please let me know. By the way, Superman already was black. They already did that. It already exists. The guy's name is Calvin Ellis. He's not Clark Kent. He's Calvin Ellis. He's already black. He already exists. And the fans of Superman, the fans of DC, already rejected that. He wasn't interesting. That's why you don't know who it is. So it's really stupid. But let's talk about Governor Cuomo. And I think a lot more people have things to say about Governor Cuomo. And that's because Governor Cuomo, we have seen him consistently throughout the COVID crisis, throughout his entire career. He is arrogant. He is pig-headed. He is an egomaniac. And once he received emergency powers under the COVID crisis, we saw that on display to the fullest extent. And the full expression of that has been the 16,000 people that he killed in nursing homes without need, that he turned around and lied to the public, to everyone, covering up the fact that he killed 16,000 people unnecessarily through his direct actions and his orders. He killed 16,000 people and lied to us about that to cover it up, to protect his political future. And then on top of that, we have come to learn that there are now 2 women who have accused him of sexual assault. And it's amazing to me that so few people actually have reacted to this. I mean, the man wrote a book about how he's such a great leader. And then the next thing we find out is this great leader who made a book and made money off of how he was leading people during the COVID crisis, which is still ongoing. And he got an Emmy. And it turns out that he's not a good guy, not in the least. And I find it interesting because I was looking at The Guardian, which is a British newspaper, and their coverage of this versus ABC News coverage of the fact that there is now 2 women who are accusing Governor Cuomo of sexual assault, of Me Too. And, you know, the thing that I find interesting about that is if you watch the version, if you look at the British commentary versus the American commentary, the British commentary actually goes into the details first and tells you what's going on with the case, like what's the problem here. And I'll show you what I mean. So if you look at this, the very first thing is you see that in the British version of The Guardian, talking about Governor Cuomo and this breaking news about him having a second woman who's accused him, is that they go into how this was inappropriate, the accusation that's been made against him, the fact that Bill de Blasio, amongst other Democrats, are now finally saying, well, this has gone too far. There is a problem here. They tell you about the first allegation that came out, which is from Mrs. Boylan. And that's what they start off with. But with ABC News, what they talk about is they kind of skip over it. They start talking about, well, the process, how Governor Cuomo is handling this, that he's put someone out to do an investigation, someone that he happens to have control over, so that it's not an independent investigation. This is amazing to me. And it is something that a lot of Democrats are saying something about. In fact, we finally heard from Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo. She finally made a statement here that she's upset with Governor Cuomo, not because he killed 16,000 people, not because he lied to the American public while he did that. No, now she's upset because not that there was one sexual assault, but 2 sexual assaults. With the second sexual assault, she now has joined with a few other Democrats to say, oh my God, we have to have an independent investigation. Not that he should be removed immediately because of the accusation under Me Too that we've seen Democrats say for, I don't know how long, for years now. We saw if you were accused, well, that was enough. And even, Senator Al Franken was removed from office because of an accusation. These are the rules of the Democratic Party. And finally, Donald Lopardo is saying, well, let's sort of go by that and have an investigation. Not we believe that woman and all women must be believed. No, there has to be an investigation because he is Governor Cuomo. He is a Democrat. He is powerful. So we have to give him every excuse and every way out of this. So while I'm very happy to see that some local politicians like Donald Lopardo are finally stepping up and saying, hey, this man is abusing all the power that has been given to him. And he has been doing so long term. But they're finally stepping up and saying, hey, this is a problem. Governor Cuomo is a problem. And I think, it's really sad. And I know Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo. I don't think she is a bad person. I've spoken with her. She's been on this program. She's done interviews with us. I'm not disparaging her personally. But I do say professionally, I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. Why did it take this much to finally say maybe he shouldn't have emergency powers, to get this far before they say maybe he needs to be removed from office? It wasn't enough that he killed 16,000 people and then lied about it, that he made money on the backs of the dead. That wasn't enough. The fact that he did so purely because of political ambition, that wasn't enough. No. The fact that he had one sexual assault that was claimed against him, that wasn't enough. No, it had to be all of that plus a second sexual assault to make the New York State Democratic Party, the leadership, the assembly members and the state legislature to finally have a question. It takes all of that and a second accusation. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. Why in the world would it take all of that? I don't know, folks. I mean, maybe it's me. Maybe do you think that Governor Cuomo should be removed because he's had 2 sexual assaults accused against him, and under the rules of Me Too, an accusation is equal to guilt, and therefore he should just resign immediately? Do you believe that he should have the benefit of doubt and there should be an independent counsel trying to see if he did or did not commit these crimes? By the way, the second case is confirmed that that notification was made to the Cuomo administration, and she was moved. She was removed from working with Governor Cuomo and put into another part of the Capitol, separate and far away from him. So, and it is on record. So there's no question that this was alleged. The Cuomo administration knew of it, and they just didn't tell anyone about it. They didn't go forward with it. They didn't have an investigation when it happened last year. No, rather they just brushed it aside. Again, most likely for political reasons. And A.G. James shouldn't be the one to do the investigation. She has a political benefit as well. She wants to run for governor. So we need someone separate. But according to the rules laid out by Democrats, shouldn't he be gone already? Isn't it enough that 16,000 people died and he made money off their backs and lied about it? I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. I mean, maybe it's enough that Donald Pardo has finally stepped forward and now has finally made a statement after all this time. I don't think that's enough. I don't think that is properly representing the public. And speaking about people who aren't representing the public, let's talk about what's going on with the Pentagon. Let's talk about what's going on in Syria. Let's talk about Iraq, the Middle East. Because the Middle East is a problem right now, a massive problem. And it seems that I've already gone too far talking about Governor Cuomo and sexual assault and that he should be charged with it. Has already been, there may be some throttling going on, the effective shadow ban coming from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. But let's understand what's going on. An American was killed because Iran wanted to kill Americans. And Iran got their agents to go forward and kill an American to test Joe Biden, to see what he would do. Now, this isn't the first time that this has happened. In fact, we had in December of 2019, it was December 31st, I believe, that we saw that under President Trump, Iran went out and they had rocket attacks and they attacked the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. And when they did that, the immediate response from President Trump at the time was to send in 100 Marines, which was later increased to 750 Marines, and to have a mobilization of our air forces out there. And there were airstrikes on Iran-backed militia, the very same militia groups that are now being said to be unattached to Iran. Of course, in 2019, we understood and acknowledged that they were Iran-backed militia groups, terrorist organizations. And we immediately sent out Marines and troops and planes. There was no hesitation. And that was a response. In fact, we even had rumors of adding another 14,000 U.S. troops to make sure that Baghdad and the Green Zone and U.S. citizens overseas would be protected. We did all of that. But what are we doing under the Joe Biden administration? What's the message that we sent? The same thing happened. They did 3 sets of rocket attacks, over 21 rockets, went in, hit several spots throughout Iraq to see what Joe Biden would do. What did America do? Well, one of the first things that we saw that America was doing is we started down this process of making our military kinder, a kinder, gentler kind of military. The Army changing its rules so that drill sergeants, they're just not possible. They're not able to do the same kind of training. They can't do basic training like they used to. The new training exercise is designed to put new trainees through a series of physically and mentally challenging events that will build an initial foundation of, quote, belief in oneself, belief in your teammates, and a belief in the leaders with whom they serve. That's where our government was going. That's the direction of our military. To have belief in your teammates. You don't have teammates. You're in the military. You have soldiers, and you have a chain of command. And you don't, whether you believe in them or not is meaningless, because you're there to do a job, and you do the job in the military regardless of whether you believe in Joe on the left and Bill on the right. It doesn't matter. You're going to do the job. Whether you believe in yourself is meaningless. You do the job. Here's the order. You go do it. Take that hill. There's a machine gun pointing at you and shooting at you. And the order is to take that hill, to take out that machine gun. You do it. Not because you think you're going to succeed necessarily. Not because you think your buddy on the left and the right are going to do it. You do it because that's the order and that's what needs to be done. Period. You do it. Because that's the job. Except now we have a new, kinder military that doesn't do that. We have trainees that can't go through basic training. This is very upsetting for me. See, I was in the Marines, and I went to Parris Island, like my father before me, and so many other Marines. And I understand the process that starts the moment the doors on the bus open up at the base. And it is nonstop go, nonstop pressure, nonstop adrenaline. It is stress, massive stress, not COVID stress. It is pure hell. And that's a good thing. The whole point of the process is to make you sweat, to make you stressed. Because if you can operate under stress with lack of sleep, lack of food, you will survive. And if you can survive that, you have a better chance of surviving under active warfare. You know, when groups like Iran's military, their agents, otherwise known as the Popular Mobilization Forces, when they start sending rockets and individuals to try and kill you, you have a better chance of surviving because you've lived with stress. But not in the Joe Biden administration. In the Joe Biden administration, we have a military that is there to protect your hairstyle and grooming. Because, you know, if you're black, you have to be able to have braids or whatever various hairstyle. You want to have purple hair. You want it to grow down to your buttocks. You got to have that option. Because, you know, you join the military. That's stupid. That's the goal of our military, to be able to protect people so that they can have various hairstyles. You know what? You don't have time for that. There's a reason why there's a Marine high and tight. Well, there are certain practices with our hair to keep it short, trim, so it's not a distraction. You're not going out for a fashion event. You're in the military. You're going out to go, and quite honestly, you're going to kill people. That's your job, to protect America and Americans' interests, normally with a bullet. And they're saying that we have to be worried about what you're grooming, how your hair, whether or not you have braids or not, or whatever hairstyle. Really? That's the most important thing we have to worry about? Under the Joe Biden administration, and this is from Military One Source. which is a part of the U.S. Department of Defense. And this is their article on January 25th, 5 days after Joe Biden is in office. This is his directive on how the military supports diversity and inclusion. And their long-term goal is creating diversity and inclusion. And you have to wonder, why? Why? Why do we have to worry about inclusion? Why do we have to have it has to be fair. We have to make sure there's the proper proportion of people who are black, white, what? Why? We have volunteer military. There is no draft. You can't guarantee that there are going to be demographically correct numbers of people in the military. You can't. Because it's a voluntary service. And you know what? The military isn't supposed to be fair. It's not meant to be fair. The rules aren't fair. That's why you don't get protected by the Constitution when you are in the military. When you swear in, you are no longer under the Constitution and the amendments. You have the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ. That is the law in place of the Constitution because you have given up your rights. You've suspended your rights to be in the military. And you do things that regular human beings, regular people would never do. No one in their right mind runs towards a machine gun pointing at them. You don't do that. But people in the military do to protect others, to protect our nation, to protect our nation's interests. It's not about fairness. It's not about kindness. It's not about being gentle and making everyone feel good. That's not its job. No wonder we see that Iran is going out there and they are testing the United States, just like they did a year ago when they were testing President Trump.
President Trump on Wednesday added to the growing tension between the...
And just like they did this year, or in December of 2020, when they decided that they were going to have rocket attacks on U.S. embassies. This is before Biden gets in. And what did they decide to do? They decided to go out there and they said, hey, let's see what Trump's going to do. Let's see what the transition's going to be like to Joe Biden. And the result was that we saw President Trump decided to, not only did he go out and warn them that if a single American were to die, that hell would rain on Baghdad, he also sent out 2 B-52 bombers, and he sent out a nuclear submarine, a strategic guided missile submarine, which is overkill. It is a massive response, and it was an immediate response. Now, I say all of that to bring up a simple point. We saw that since Joe Biden came into office, as we reported, on day 2 of Joe Biden being in office, he was sending troops into Syria. He already had a Middle East plan, and that was to restart the Middle East wars, to actively get American troops involved in the Middle East and in the fighting in the Middle East, as we reported on January 22nd, when he sent in troops and increased the number of American troops in Syria in preparation of, well, at the time, we had no idea. And, of course, we knew at the time that there would be a reaction to this. And what was the reaction? Well, very simply, there were 3 rocket attacks on U.S. bases, Iraq forces, the U.S. in Iraq, in Baghdad and elsewhere. And the Biden administration suddenly couldn't... well, we just got a comment here, and let me get to it. So we received a comment. Ann mentions, your show is great every week. So glad I started watching in the last month or so. Tricia, you're there. Good to see you. You're so smart. We need more like you in our government. Thank you. Thank you both. I don't know if there's a delay that's going on, and I'm pretty sure there is a massive delay that's going on right now with YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and they are not enjoying our program. They are not enjoying the things we are talking about. They don't like people pointing out that Governor Cuomo should be removed, not only because of the Me Too regulations, but also because of his killing 16,000 people. They don't like the fact that we're talking about the Middle East policy, something that was never discussed to the American people. The 2020 election had nothing about Middle East policy, international policy. They wouldn't tell you. And Dal just mentioned, just realized what time it was. No, Dal, it's fantastic. I don't care if you're late. I'm glad you're here. So the major media, especially the internet overlords, they don't want to talk about international policy. They don't want to talk about what is Joe Biden going to do. And we have to talk about that. We have to understand what is the difference between what we were doing under President Trump and now what are we doing under the Biden administration. Because there's a big difference. We have dumbed down our military. We have made it kind and gentle. And we have stepped away from immediate reactions saying, hey, if you attack us, we are going to do something. See, we saw that when the rockets attacked in Erbil, and I know I said that wrong, Erbil International Airport in Baghdad, the answer from the United States was, it's difficult to say with certainty. There's a strategic calculation driving this recent uptick in attack, whether it's just a continuation of sorts of attacks we've seen in the past. We have no idea what's going on. These are dangerous attacks. Who is attacking us? We couldn't possibly imagine. Except this is exactly what happened just previously. We know this. It was just a month ago that we saw that there were attacks under President Trump. It was the same Iranian-backed groups that were trying to attack us in December that were attacking us in February. Same people. But now, under the Biden administration, we have no idea who it is. And under the Trump administration, we knew exactly who it was. And under the Trump administration, we made an immediate response. Under the Biden administration, it takes us 10 days to figure out what we should do. Time 303, testing delay. I see the response immediately, but I'm not sure. Thank you for testing that out, Jason. So the Biden administration takes them 10 days to do what President Trump did in a day. And you have to wonder, what is Iran really saying about that? What's that saying to the rest of the world? That it takes America 10 days to verify what we already knew, that we knew in December. The same groups doing the same kind of attack under President Trump got a guided nuclear missile to patrol their area with B-52 bombers flying over their heads saying, don't you dare continue to do that. Under the Biden administration, it takes 10 days to send off an airstrike, which may or may not have killed up to about 22 people. The reports are various about that. And even with that, we see that Iran is pretty confident in what they're doing. They're pretty sure they're going to get a nuclear deal and that they're going to get sanctions lifted. I mean, that's the whole thing. While Biden was talking about everything he wanted to do, and Tehran was talking to Iraq saying, hey, give us $6 billion so that we can fund global terrorism, so that we can kill Americans and those Israelis, because that's their plan. That has always been their plan. Iran has always wanted to kill everyone who doesn't believe in Islam the way that they think of Islam. That should terrify people. That should be scary. To see that we waited 10 days. And by the way, all the links of everything I'm showing you on the show, they're all going to be at the end of the show, it's going to be in the description. You'll be able to see these links for yourself to come to your own conclusion. Yes. Hot Chicks, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you're with us as well. Yes, you are seeing the show. So it's incredible to me that we're watching the military policy of Joe Biden fall apart. It seems that he is absolutely adamant that he wants to have a new Iran nuclear deal to prop up the Obama administration, to turn this into the Obama 2.0. And he wants to continue the Syrian fight, or the fight against Syria, that President Obama started. And he is willing to do almost anything to do that. Because when we had the rocket attacks were against U.S. citizens, and it killed an American. Thankfully, only one. But other people were killed as well. And in Joe Biden's response, he decided to attack a bunch of Syrian terrorist groups. He didn't bother anyone in Iraq, because Iraq is talking to Iran right now. And Iran is trying to get Iraq to give them $6 billion. And Iran wants to control Iraq. And Joe Biden, he doesn't want to do anything that would make Iran upset and stop them from joining the nuclear deal, or restarting the nuclear deal. So instead of dealing with the problem that was in Iraq, he decided to attack in Syria. Does that make sense? Let me try and put it into another way. So let's say we'll turn to high school. There's a bully in high school, and the bully is picking on you. And so to respond to that bully, you turn around and you hit some other person, the bully's friend. Does that stop the bully? Does that stop what the bully is going to be doing? Is that going to make them even more upset? And that's exactly the Middle East policy we have right now under Joe Biden. I think this is one of the best analogies that could be made about this. We have a bully, which is Iran. Iran is attacking Americans in Iraq. But because Joe Biden and the Biden administration are afraid to piss off the bully that is Iran, they went and picked a fight with someone else. Does that make sense? Does that make Iran go, oh my God, we can't pick on America? They're going to do something serious. They're going to have a serious response. Are you kidding me? You know what's a serious response? Saying you had a rocket attack, no one died, and guess what? I have a guided nuclear missile submarine parked right outside the bay. Stop it or else. I've got 2 B-52 bombers flying over your head. And I did all of that without having to have a conversation with NATO and all of my allies and have a conference and hear what they have to say and take 10 days to figure out, well, we'll pick on someone else. Are you kidding me? And I can understand why YouTube, Facebook, Twitter want to shadow ban this, don't want you to have this conversation, because I ask you, which response makes more sense to you? Which one do you think Iran is going to react to? Do you think that they are going to take someone putting a nuclear submarine in the middle just off the coast and having B-52 bombers flying overhead? Do you think that is a strong statement to them? Or do you think that it is more powerful to say, hey, we're going to go and beat up on someone else in an entirely other country, whole different group of people that have nothing to do with what you just did? Or do you think the Biden administration is willing to do anything to be able to say the Iran nuclear deal is back on? to prop up the Obama legacy and to say that, oh, we've helped world peace by actively funding global terror and by helping start a active war in Syria, because that's what Joe Biden has done. In attacking terrorist groups in Syria, we are making that Syrian conflict active. Those Syrian terrorists are going to attack American troops in Syria. Maybe that's why Joe Biden increased the amount of troops that we have in Syria, because he knew he wanted to attack them, because he wanted to have an active war in Syria. But that's not going to help anything in what's going on in Iraq, an entirely different country. They don't care what happened in Syria. The people in Iraq attacking Americans and American installations, they're going to keep attacking us. The fact that someone in Syria got bombed has nothing to do with them. In fact, they would have to say, if we attacked you and you didn't respond back to us, you're picking on someone else. If you did that once, why in the world would I be worried? You're going to keep doing that. You're afraid of me. I believe this is a signal to Iran and to the world that Joe Biden is afraid of Iran, because he won't respond to what happened in Iraq. He went over to Syria. And he's saying, oh, I'm such a big badass because I picked on these little guys over in Syria rather than dealing with the problem in Iraq. Shocking. This is high school level bullying tactics and running away from the bully, which is very PC and very progressive. You know, you can't stand up for yourself. No, pick on someone else. Pick on someone you think is weaker than you. Go fight them. Don't get involved with the actual fight with the actual bully. Especially when that bully has, something you want. Political clout. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, do you think I'm wrong about this? Because again, I am showing you the sources that we're not talking about something that happened so ancient history. This was in December of 2020. And the response was immediate. And what's happening now with Joe Biden, that's February 2021. We're talking about 2 months difference. So we're not talking ancient history. And I have to believe that the answer that we're going to see from Iran is not where they're going to back down. I really just don't see them backing down from this. It's already been something that's been well stated that their response was they're outraged by the deadly rocket attack. They want to hold, even though the U.S. said we're going to hold someone accountable for this, Iran has responded by saying, hey, no, you're the bad guys. This is the response, and yes, I do read Al Jazeera from time to time to hear, and not because I think Al Jazeera is a fair or unbiased source. They're incredibly biased and anti-American in almost everything that they do. But that is a great way to see what Tehran and Iran and the Ayatollah, what they are thinking, and seeing how they are demanding to see U.S. troops out of Iraq, to try and condemn the U.S. for attacking people in Syria that had nothing to do with what happened in Iraq. They are using this to their advantage. They are making Joe Biden look dumb. I mean, it's incredible to me that we have a president and an administration that are so clueless about what's going on And they're heralding, they're cheering themselves, patting themselves on the back because we got all of our friends, all of our allies said, you know what, this is a good thing, rather than actually just doing what they need to do. Dow mentions culturally, appeasement indicates weakness. Willingness to utilize force to defend oneself and interests with superior force indicates strength. Yes, and that's why in the last 4 years, we saw that the Middle East, for the most part, was relatively calm. Why we saw more peace, more active and positive steps towards peace in the Middle East in the last 4 years than we saw in the last 4 decades before that. And we are actively throwing it away right now. The Middle East respects strength. Whether or not you like it, whether or not you like the guy who has the strength, is meaningless. The fact that we have the strength and we are willing to display it and say we are willing to use it, and from time to time to actually use it, is the powerful statement, and that makes them back down. Because that's what Iran did. They backed down for 4 years. And now, under Joe Biden, we're seeing an entirely different reaction. Dow mentions that strength leads to respect, and mentions that, why do you think Biden called the strike on Syria? What do you think the real motive was? Dow mentions maybe others won't like you, but they will respect you. Well, at the very least, Dow, they may not like you. They may begrudgingly respect you, but they'll also fear you. And if it is fear that stops a global war, that stops global terror, I'm okay with that. I mean, you may not. People may not agree with that and say, oh, well, Mike, no, fear is a horrible thing. We're talking about international politics. We're talking about countries with nuclear bombs. We're talking about countries that have chemical weapons, that use them on their own people, that are willing to commit genocide based on their radical religious ideology, and that have declared that they want to kill everyone that doesn't believe exactly what they believe. If you're telling me fear isn't an effective way to hold that kind of terror at bay, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And let's be honest, if we can do that and use fear rather than having to use a lot of lives to have active warfare, it's a good thing. And what you're saying is, why did Biden call the strike? Well, kind of like we were talking about back on January 22nd, when we were talking about, when we were one of the very few in news media, large or small, talking about the fact that Joe Biden was sending troops into Syria. As a matter of fact, at the time, we were told that we were wrong. Look back on the news media to January 22nd, and you will see that on January 22nd, 23rd, the major news media was telling you, no, that really didn't happen. No, we can't confirm that. No, Joe Biden has no interest in what's going on in Syria. Don't worry about it. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. It's not a big deal. And here we are, February 28th, and it is a big deal. We increased our troops in Syria so we could attack and join the fight in the civil war in Syria. Syria's civil war. Why that has anything to do with Americans, I don't know, because that is a civil war in Syria. And the local players who are involved in that, Russia, Iran, they're involved. Why is America involved? Why are we backing a terrorist group, the PPK? Why is America, the YPK, why is America backing terrorists in the Syrian fight? Because Joe Biden wants to have more, he wants to have a positive little paragraph in the history books. He wants to say that he had the Iran nuclear deal, that he helped to put it there. He's trying to say that, hey, you know, he made more peace in the Middle East because he got rid of one bad guy in a place filled with lots of bad guys. And let's be honest, the Middle East is filled with people who are bad guys. It is a relative degree of badness. There are no saints in the Middle East, unless you have believed that particular bent of religion. They're all bad people. They stone, literally, Iran stones people to death for being gay. For a woman could get raped and she will be stoned to death because somebody raped her. And there's a word that will get all of the internet overlords really upset. But that is a fact. And all of these people are saying, oh, we have to work with the Middle East. We have to work with these nations. We have to protect them and respect them. You're telling me you want to respect someone who is literally stoning women for being sexually assaulted? I mean, it's the kind of place where, you know, this guy, Andrew Cuomo, would do really, really well. Yes, hot, as you mentioned, girls, girls, girls. So I'm trying to make this make sense, and I hope it does make sense. And I hope this, and I know that there's probably a delay going on right now because the internet overlords don't like this conversation. But I hope the analogy of the high school, the bully, makes sense. I hope it makes sense to understand that there is an agenda here. There is a Middle East policy. And that Middle East policy is one of appeasement. That's what Joe Biden is after. I mean, that's what we're seeing. Even Al Jazeera is recognizing this. We're seeing that even when we see Defense News talking about it, when we see Iran talking about it, as Reuters has reported, Iran condemning the U.S. strikes in Syria, and that they deny that they were behind the attacks in Iraq. Their group, the Kataib Hezbollah, are the same people who attacked us in December. Same organization, same people who attacked us in 2019. Same people. But the response was entirely different. But the thing that Iran is worried about isn't the United States. They're worried about the $6 billion. And I said that before, and this is the proof of it. This is coming from Reuters itself. They want the $6 billion in money that has been locked up in Iraq. Because Iran is the leader in the world of global terror. And when the nuclear, under Obama, the Obama's nuclear deal gave them, I believe it was $350 billion to fund global terror that then Secretary John Kerry admitted would be used to help create global terror. The Iran nuclear deal actually created more global terror in the world than existed before it. And now we have Joe Biden, who is trying to reinstate that same deal. And he is so sure, he wants to make sure it happens so badly that he is willing to let Iran talk with Iraq about getting $6 billion more for global terror than to pick a fight with Iran and say, you can't kill American soldiers. If you think I'm wrong, please, as much as, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube will allow, leave me a comment or call into the show. Call into 607-242-1582. Leave us a comment and say, hey, this is why we think there's a problem. I want to hear your comments. Excuse me one second. I'm just checking the line. And if someone had tried to reach us before, we didn't hear the phone ring, but please, if you, one of our signals was down, but if you think we're wrong, tell us. Hot Chicks mentions that Crazy Horse, Paris, France. Okay, I'm not getting that reference. Crazy Horse, Paris, France. I'm assuming that's a location. I'm not sure what that means. But if we look at the news that is out there, coming from all the sources, whether it's when we're looking at how, even when we see the CNBC, when they're talking about Iran and how they condemned the United States on their Syrian actions, when we see that Tehran is speaking directly through Reuters, when we see the differences in the responses between December of 2020.
Life happens at Owens Clearance Center.
Stop that. I hate when it does that. The difference between December of 2020 and the actions on February of 2021. When we're looking at this, it's a very clear message, I think. It's a message of appeasement and fear, of weakness. And I don't think there's another way of, I think it's so obvious. That's why we're seeing the news media won't talk about it. That's why we didn't get to hear during the 2020 election. We heard 0 words about international policy. That's why since Joe Biden has been, the Biden administration has been in place, we have not heard anyone talking about international policy. We have not heard about what's going on with our troops over in Iraq and in Syria. Even as those troops have been adding, and we've been increasing our number of troops, and we've been getting into more direct conflict. There's a reason for that. And I think that reason ties into the power that Iran has been growing. They're getting more aggressive. And if you think it's just Iran, watch out. North Korea is right around the corner. They're paying attention, and they already have nukes. Iran may be trying to get one. North Korea already has them, very likely sharing some of their information with Iran, North Korea. And North Korea is crazy. They are absolutely crazy. And who knows what those nuts, what Kim Jong-un would actually do. And he is watching what is getting a response, what is making America capitulate, what is getting money for Iran and getting rid of the sanctions so that they can go and buy things, which is something that North Korea absolutely wants to be able to do. They want to buy stuff, like food, because they're starving. And if they think that waving around the nuclear weapons that they have and saying, hey, give us money or else, Joe Biden will do it. He's not going to drop a nuclear submarine outside their docks and say, calm down. He's not going to fly bombers over them and say, calm down. He's going to say, oh, well, we got some money. We can get it for you. We can lift sanctions for you. We will let you talk to all of our allies and ask them to lift sanctions. It's a cowardly act. Dow mentions, obviously, Biden never studied Chamberlain's foreign policies prior to World War II. For those who don't know, that's a reference to Lord Chamberlain of the United Kingdom, who proposed appeasement in 1939 when the 1940s Germany decided that it wanted to take over a couple of countries. And the then Prime Minister Chamberlain decided that, well, we just let them take these couple of little countries and they will calm down and then they'll stop acting up. they won't be a problem anymore. And instead, after Austria was annexed, Hungary was annexed, we saw that, World War II started. And John Taylor mentions Chamberlain is massively misunderstood. Look into the conversion of British factories to manufacturing tanks, warplanes, warships, and weapons, and you see he enabled Britain to fight. We have several people who are fans of the show from Great Britain, Scotland, members who are in Germany, who are in Canada, all around the world, but specifically in the United Kingdom. I know there's about 2 or 3 different people that I recognize, and they have a very unique view. I don't know that the British see Chamberlain the same way you're describing, John. And let's also understand, converting a factory from making, cradles for babies and converting it into making various products to support a world war, it's not very hard to do. Doesn't take a lot of time. Anyone can get that done. Now, some people can do it more efficiently than other people, and if you want to say he did it very efficiently and that's a great thing, okay. But that didn't stop the fact that he had the opportunity to stop the 1940s Germany before they got that far, before they were set up to just go barn stomping across all of Europe. And we have that same kind of problem, I believe, in the Middle East. Joe Biden has an opportunity to stop Iran before it starts barn stomping across the Middle East, which would only grow into a bigger conflict around the world. We have that opportunity to stop that. It was under control previously. We are losing that control. We are losing all of the efforts of peace. The 4 Nobel Peace Prizes, the 4 different peace deals in the Middle East, the most ever seen under one administration, the most seen in the last 40 years, and we are losing them day by day because Joe Biden isn't willing to tell Iran to back down. And the other nuclear powers around, like North Korea, are seeing that, and they will pay attention. They will react as well. You want to see Venezuela act up? Watch. Watch every socialist nation start having more and more activity, because a timid U.S. is a U.S. that might as well not be doing its job, might as well not be in charge. And it's not like I like the fact that the U.S. is the police of the world. I don't. But we are. That's already been established. And for us not to be a leader in the world, protecting the world, when we don't do that, the world erupts into flames because there is a void. There is no one else to step in and say, we will protect you. We will make sure that there is freedom and democracy in the world. China certainly isn't going to do it. China is one of the people who wants to enslave people. So, yeah, we need a Joe Biden that is more, less like Chamberlain and more like, oh God, I forgot his name. With the big stogie. Oh my God. His name's on the tip of my tongue with his bulldog. Oh God. He's so famous. Oh, you know who I'm talking about. In World War II, for Great Britain, their prime minister led them. Why am I forgetting his name? But maybe, if you don't think I'm right, please tell me why. If I'm misunderstanding this, please let me know why. If you think I'm wrong, John, anybody, if you think I'm wrong about where the direction is for the Biden administration in regards to Churchill. Thank you. Thank you. I just could not think of his name for a second there. I had everything envisioned. I could see him standing there. I could see his statue. Could not think of his name. A man who is being derided right now under the current culture, as we're hearing from BLM and the rest of them telling us how he's such a horrible person, how Britain is being told they are horrible people because they're white. And that is an argument that's ongoing right now in Britain, just like it is in the United States. And just like Macron mentioned in France, we have exported BLM around the world to the benefit of no one in the world. And so, I don't know. John Taylor mentions that, sorry, you don't know what you're talking about. Without Chamberlain, Churchill would have had nothing to fight with. I don't agree with that. And we have a difference of opinion about that, John. And that's okay. And I could be wrong. I'm not going to say I'm an expert about World War II. I'm not an expert about Britain in World War II and in the 1939. I can't say that 1930s Britain is an area that I am an expert. I am not. And as I said, I would love to hear from the rest of our listeners who are over in the UK to clarify. But I do believe, and as I recall in the history, Chamberlain is not the hero of World War II. Churchill is. There's a reason for that. And you may say, well, he couldn't have done that without, well, maybe he could have, maybe he couldn't have. We don't know. But I do know Chamberlain created more of a problem. Churchill had to deal with that problem. Same thing we're seeing with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is taking the same aspect of Chamberlain in that he's making more of a problem and he's not resolving it. He's not being like Churchill. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Could be. Maybe people think I just don't understand it. I think I do. I think I have a pretty good hold here, and I think it's a pretty apt understanding. But one thing I think is very clear no matter what is you aren't being told any of this. There is no discussion about this that is happening in the rest of the world. We're barely hearing from the news media the fact that Joe Biden, people don't even understand that there was a rocket attack which caused Joe Biden to then respond 10 days later. They are so completely separate. There are people out there who, when watching the news, if you were just paying attention to the headlines in the news, you might have noticed, maybe would have noticed that the United States just did an airstrike in Syria. And most people don't know why. Because that has no connection to them on what happened 10 days prior. We're talking about news media that gives you 30-second sound bites and forgets what it was talking about yesterday the next day. People don't know that what's going on with our Middle East policy, let alone our international policy. And they're not being told about the fact that we have troops that are increasing and our aggressive stance is increasing. That's a problem. Maybe I don't have enough of the facts out there, although considering what we're hearing from the Israeli Times, what we're hearing from the Al Jazeera, we're hearing from Reuters, we're hearing from BBC, as well as the U.S. News, when you're listening to all of them and putting it all together, we are in a very weak position, and that means the world is potentially in danger. Hot mentions that Trump is late. Oh, you mean down at C-SPAN? He's always late. Most years, last several years in a row, I've been at CPAC, and I have covered it live, both as an audience member and as also a member of the press. But this year, with all the changes, with the problems with COVID, the fact I just don't have the funds that I had in previous years, well, couldn't go. So that's why I'm not at CPAC right now. Hopefully in 2022, I'll be in CPAC again, and I'll be covering it live from there. Now, I mentioned in the description about the show today, we were going to talk about also, are we exchanging our position in the Middle East? Are we taking on a war with Syria in exchange for getting a check, a COVID relief check for the amount of $1,400? I think the answer to that is yes. And let me try and explain what I mean by that and how that difference is existing, okay? So we just saw that on February 27th, yesterday, Saturday, suddenly we saw the House of Representatives pass H.R. 1319. I know the media never tells you what the bills are, so you can never look it up for yourself. The bill number is H.R. 1319. That is the COVID relief bill, $1.9 trillion. And as we can see, the vote was 219 to 212, with one person not voting. That is, in fact, 219 Democrats, 219 Democrats for, 2 Democrats, 210 Republicans against, and 1 guy who happened to be a Republican voting, and that was a Republican named Boost out of Illinois, who did not vote at all. And I have to ask you a question. Why is it that suddenly something that was promised, we were promised that on day one, the day that if a Joe Biden were to win the 2020 election, we were told day one there would be checks being sent out, that would be his first and foremost goal, is to provide COVID relief for the American people. We also told that it would be $2,000, but it wasn't, but whatever. It's $1,400. And yet we've gone over a month without that happening. And there's been every distraction in the House of Representatives, which is controlled by Democrats. They had the votes, and they just didn't do it. And you have to ask yourself, what's going on? Why did they suddenly decide to have, not only to get the COVID relief passed, but they did it on a Saturday? Come on, we're talking about Congress, especially a divided Congress. They don't go out and vote. They work less than everybody. School teachers go to school and work more than the Congress does. They take vacations all the time, and they almost never are in Washington, D.C. on a weekend unless there is a deadline. You know, like when we have to pay for the budget. And almost always that goes over. So we always see that they're never in there. Why is the House of Representatives in on a Saturday? Besides the fact that we want to distract the American people from what's going on internationally. See, we've been so focused on domestic problems, no one's been talking about the international problems. And everyone's been so focused on arguing about the COVID relief bill that we haven't paid attention to anything else that's going on. No one's paying attention to the fact that Joe Biden is trying to disarm the Second Amendment, to make it unaffordable for people to use the Second Amendment. That's H.R. 127, which we've talked about several times on this program. So now we're seeing that they rushed on into Congress to pass a bill that they could pass on any given day. There has been nothing stopping Democrats since January 20th from passing the COVID relief. It was the exact amount, 1.9 trillion. That didn't change. Who they were giving to didn't change. Nothing changed about that bill. The only thing that changed is the timing. When is it useful to distract the American people from what's going on in the world and going on in our country? Now, if you think I'm wrong about that, and you think there's another reason why on a Saturday that Nancy Pelosi got all of the Democrats together so that they could pass a $1.9 trillion pandemic deal, I don't know. I mean, what's in this thing? Well, we know. We already know. Paid sick leave, health insurance subsidies, Obamacare, more money for small business, almost none of it, and that there's a minimum wage. That's the big thing. In fact, if you were to look this up, and you can do this yourself, going to congress.gov, okay, you go to congress.gov, HR 1319, American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, and you can look this up for yourself. It was, oh God, I just had that section in front of me. And you can go into Part 2, miscellaneous. This is what they just passed. This is what the Democrats put through the House. $135 million for the National Endowment of the Arts. $135 million for the National Endowment of the Humanities. The Institute of Museum and Library Services got $200 million. That's $470 million. It's $500 million. Let me ask you a question. How does that help anyone with COVID-19? How does that keep anyone in their houses? The eviction crisis that has been massively destroying this nation, how does $470 million for the arts, for the humanities, and for libraries, how does that help the American people get a job, go to work, pay their bills? Because I don't see it. They are wasting money. Not only are they doing it there, then there's the raising the federal minimum wage. How does a minimum wage increase help people pay their bills? Because it doesn't. 1.6 million Americans get paid minimum wage. According to the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, 3.5 million people will lose their jobs because of the increase in the minimum wage. So you'll have twice as many people losing a job as the number of people who will have their pay increased. Then it gets even worse. To pay for that, businesses will charge more. So poor people will pay more money than everyone else. And so there goes that $15 in the minimum wage. And we've already seen everywhere that this has been done, including in Manhattan, since 2018, as I recall, 30% of small businesses closed and or cut people's hours to part-time from full-time. It didn't help anyone. So let me ask you, we're paying $1.9 trillion. The majority of that money is not going out as a check to the American people. We are spending billions on things that do not stop COVID and do not help people get a job and do not help people pay their bills. Why are we doing it? I mean, it's a simple question. Why in the world would we do this? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I try to figure this out. I'm trying to understand this, but it doesn't make any sense. Dal mentioned that H.R. 1 is equally scary in conjunction with H.R. 127. Yeah, it is. It is also a terrifying piece of legislation. And we should be opposed to this. We should not want to see this. And I think it's being rammed through because Everyone wants the free money. I mean, you ask the average person walking down the street. So we can give you, the government can give you $1,400, or they won't give you the money, but we'll be able to get businesses open. Do you want the money? Do you want $1,400? Yeah, sure I do. Who doesn't? It's a distraction. What do you mean you're not going to give me? I mean, look at the amount of time that the news media has spent talking about whether or not we're getting a $2,000 check, and whether or not this check should be $2,000 or whether it should be $1,400. Just look at how much time that the media has tried to get into our heads talking about just that issue and only that issue, and compare that to the conversation they've had about what's going on with the Second Amendment. Compare that to the amount of time they've talked about the international policy of the United States and or what's going on in the Middle East. Take a look at that. Guess what? You're going to hear almost nothing about anything except, oh, it should be a $2,000 check. That's the focus. You know what you haven't heard about? Since the Biden administration, January 20th, how many riots have gone on in the nation under the banner of Antifa and BLM? How many times have the Democrat DNC headquarters, how many times have they been attacked since Joe Biden has been in? How many times have BLM and Antifa said that they hate Joe Biden just as much as they hated the guy before him, and that they want to see the American government fail? How much news have you seen on that? Because it's happened, because it's out there. The news is locally being reported in Portland, Seattle, a few other places. But you know what? You're not being told about it. You might wonder why. You might wonder why we're not being told about all these things that are happening. Why we're not being told that people like Assemblywoman Donna Pardo, when they're pissed off about a second sexual assault, but didn't have anything to say about the first sexual assault, didn't have anything to say about the people who were killed, the lies and corruption that are going on in our state government, had nothing to say about that. But now there's a second sexual assault. So now they're on board and they're doing their job. And you should be happy about that. Really? What's been going on before this? Why has the news media not brought this to our attention? And I know I have, but what about others? Dow mentions that federal employees under that recovery legislation get paid time off for not working without the same protections being extended to private businesses. Yeah. Wildman says, want to see if it fail? It has failed. You mean the government, Wildman? I assume. I'm not sure if you mean the government, or are you talking about New York State government? Are you talking about the COVID relief? Talking about the $15 minimum wage? I mean, we're seeing a lot of things that are being set up to fail, but I'm not sure which one you're speaking about. But I think they're all problems. I think they're massively important. The federal government. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I think it has failed. It is failing because we are not paying attention, because we are not demanding of them to act, to respond. I've sent out letters to them. I'm continuing to. I know they watch this program on a regular basis, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire. The problem is there's not enough people. And, I hope that people do share this program. I hope people do comment afterwards if you're not able to watch it live, and to make your comments about this, to let them know, hey, this is still going on, and subscribe. Please subscribe, because that, through the algorithm, even with the shadow banning, lets it get out to more people, and to have more interaction, because people need to hear this stuff. The federal government is failing because we're not talking about the federal government is doing. We're talking about COVID-19. We're not even talking about $1.9 trillion of what's going on in that bill. We're not talking about the $470 million that is being wasted. We're not having a conversation about that. When was the last time that you had someone in the major news media tell you that we are wasting $470 million on the National Endowment for the Arts, Humanities, libraries, and just on those four? $470 million. Do you know how many families could be fed? If that's $1,000 a family, that would be 400 million, 400,000, be about 400,000 families. If I'm doing quick math correctly, 400,000 families would get a check for $1,000 a piece. For the same money that they are wasting. And you can tell me that, well, the Endowment for National Arts, the Humanities, libraries, that they are essential. You know what? I do believe it's important to have humanities and arts and libraries. I think they're very important. I agree. But the fact is, while I agree that those are all important things, the fact is that the most important thing now? Do we need to spend that money today? Because we already spent that money just 2 months ago. In December, we just gave them hundreds of thousands, actually millions of dollars, and we're giving them hundreds of millions of dollars again 2 months later. You mean to tell me they went through all the money? No, they didn't. They're not spending the money now. You know who else got some money? And who isn't being talked about? There is, and I want to see if I can find this again. It is Howard University. Howard University is getting $35 million. And I think Howard University is a great college. I think they could do a great job. But why is it that specifically $35 million on top of all the rest of the money being given to the Department of Education, on top of all of the money that's being spent by the federal government for colleges, why are they getting an extra $35 million? Why is Gaudet, I understand why Gaudet University and the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, they're special cases. They're colleges that don't get as much attention, and they have special needs because they're dealing with people who are deaf. But Howard University, they're getting $35 million on top of the money they got in the last round. Why are they getting $35 million more? Because the students are black? Well, that brings me back to the whole conversation we were having at the very beginning about a black Superman. The color of skin has nothing to do with the character themselves or the quality of character of the person. And if we're only judging things based on skin color, well, that's just racism. Wildman mentions the government constantly tries to take freedom and restrict liberty. Never do they empower the citizens with more liberty, other than when we were founded. And that was an exception, a rare exception as politics goes. I mean, that's why we stand out as the example, the shining beacon of liberty and democracy in the world. But it's been a long time since that. It's troubling. It's very troubling. But there are answers to this. And again, the links to everything I'm talking about, everything that I've been discussing, at the end of this program, you can go into the description on YouTube and you'll be able to see it for yourself so you can read it in full context and be able to see everything that was being said and to see if you come to the same conclusion that I come to. But I was thinking about, and I want to address a little bit because there was a question I had in my head. We're getting $1,400 checks. Not everybody needs those checks. As we have talked about on this program previously, there are this next stimulus check will not fix everything. We were talking about it back in December 21st. This isn't the answer. Just throwing money at the problem. It's like the war on poverty. We've thrown $23 trillion at poverty. And we have the same percentage of poverty as in 1967. And we have more people in poverty than ever before in the history of the United States. And we're spending more money hand over fist than we have ever spent before on this problem. Same thing with COVID relief. Throwing money at the fact that people aren't working isn't going to help anyone. It isn't getting people out of trouble. In fact, in this conversation, we were talking about at that moment, I believe, coming up. People may recall, and I was speaking about it yesterday on the live stream, the CDC temporarily halted. Okay, I don't know if that's coming off very loud in on the show as well as in this program. But there's been a problem about people who are getting or pending facing eviction. We've got at least 10 million people in the United States that are at any given moment about to be evicted from their homes. And the only thing that's stopping it is the fact that the government is kicking the can down the road saying, hey, we're not going to deal with the eviction problem today. We'll answer it in the future. Except that just makes it more and more and more of a problem. They keep kicking it down. It was supposed to be something we were supposed to resolve on January 1st. Then it became March 1st. And now they're talking about October 1st, where we will finally deal with the fact that there are so many people who are facing eviction. And the government is not the solution. They have been leading the problem on this. And we know that this is up to between 23 and 34 million renters. In New York State alone, we're talking about 730,000 people who are going to be evicted from their homes at some point once the government stops kicking the can down the road. Once the Biden administration stops saying it'll be a problem for tomorrow and decides, hey, it's a problem for today. And a lot of people have been saying that the answer to this problem is more government. In particular, one of the people who are saying that is Catherine O'Regan, who's a co-director of the NYU Furman Center for Real Estate and Urban Policy and a professor, of course. And her answer is that the federal government needs to spend $4.5 billion a year to deal with evictions, not to resolve the evictions all at once, not to make a single payment, but to pay every year and just deal with it. Every year, we're just going to keep giving people money to deal with evictions and keep pushing it down the road because it's a problem forever. And we'll get more government. We'll create a new department of the government to push around more paperwork and to make the American people beholden to the government to take care of their housing, to give the government power over your home and your apartments where you live, socializing housing, because that's effectively what it's doing. $4.5 billion. It's almost a quarter of what's already past due. It's making 25% of these people dependent on the government every year to take care of their evictions, to make sure that they keep their housing. That is how you socialize housing. And it's something that we've seen done in many countries around the world, notably the socialist or otherwise communist nations of the world. And we've seen what kind of poverty they have. And I'm going to get to Wildman and Dal in 1 second, guys. So is there a solution to this? And I think there is. In fact, this is something I've been working on throughout the week. And I call it the COVID relief, civilian COVID relief program. All right. It's an idea that I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be launching it later today. And essentially, we're dealing with the problem. 10 million Americans are in some stage of the eviction process. The government knows best solution does not work. It does not help people. You know, waiting for the next stimulus to pass is gambling, because you don't know when they're going to pass it, how much they're going to pass it for. And month after month, as we wait, the problem gets bigger and bigger. More people get deeper and deeper into debt and into the eviction process, not being able to pay for their homes. So the solution I have is what I want to call the civilian COVID relief. Let me say it again. It's the civilian COVID relief. Stop waiting for the government. So I'll try and explain it as briefly as I can. My idea is very simply, I'm going to start a GoFundMe page. You can donate any amount that you want, especially since you're about to get a check for $1,400 from the government. You can donate any amount that you want, up to that full $1,400 or more if you want. And this is local. So I'm going to be working on Broome County. And what I will do is, for all the money that people put into that GoFundMe account, we're going to reach out. People tell us, oh, I'm in eviction. I'm about to be evicted. You know, I'm waiting. And once October 1st comes, they're going to evict me out of my home because I don't have enough money. Fantastic. The average is $1,257 that is owed per person that is in the eviction process, 10 million people. What we will do in Broome County is, for everyone who donates into that GoFundMe account, we will go out and reach to that landlord, and we will say to them, hey, we're going to pay up to $1,257, $1,257, and we will pay out of that GoFundMe account that amount to take that person out of eviction. That's it. We're not going to give a check to the person. We're going to pay the eviction and hopefully help people pay off their eviction notices so that they are in their homes, because we can do it faster and better than the government can. We don't need to keep them on the hook for the government being beholden to a political party for their monthly payment to pay for their or be evicted. If they don't vote for them, they don't get the money, and therefore they get evicted from their home. Rather than having this big political morass, this swamp, our answer is very simple. People who don't need the funds, don't need all of the COVID-19 stimulus. Not everybody does, let's be honest. Not everybody's in trouble. Not everybody hasn't been saving money. If you have extra, donate that. We put that money together. We pool it as a community, and we use it to help pay our neighbors' eviction notices to get them back to square one, where they're no longer in debt. They're no longer going to be evicted. And it's not a loan. They don't got to pay it back. They don't have to vote for somebody. They don't have to do anything. It's our community taking care of our own people. And I hope people will follow and copy this idea throughout the entire nation. I would love to see an organization like this or someone doing this same idea in every single community. And this isn't about any money. No one's making a profit off this. The money that goes in is the money that's going to be used. No one's getting any profit. No one's getting paid for this. The money that comes in is the money that goes out, and it's completely transparent every month, getting a total of what money came in and what money was spent out. That's what I plan to do. The civilian COVID relief plan. Will people donate to it? I don't know. But whoever does donate to it, we're going to use that money for people locally in Broome County to pay off their evictions. And then After that, if there's more money, if there's more interest, we'll do it in, I don't know, Shenango, Tioga, in whatever county or around the country. Or hopefully other people will do it. Same idea. And I hope people will spread this idea. And you should see this up. I expect to have the website up and have this notice out March 1st is my expectation. We're going to have this launched immediately. And people will take care of it because we can do this better than the government can. That is my plan, the civilian COVID relief. We don't need politicians to solve us. The problems are the problems created by politicians. We, the people, are the solution. This is my solution to it. To come back to some of the comments here. So I left off and I apologize, but I wanted to flow with that for a second. So we left off with Wildman, who was mentioning that government constantly tries to take freedom and restrict liberty. Yes, a society governed by reciprocity is the solution. The tongue is a little tied today. Dow mentions that largely poverty exploded with the degradation of the middle class, and it will continue to do so. And the middle class is being whittled away, both by taxes and government intervention. And especially after what we've seen here with COVID, 30% of all small businesses have closed forever in 2020. Potentially over the next 6 months, it is estimated that another 30%, possibly in New York State, we're looking at 40% of small businesses may close forever within the next 6 months, with or without the COVID relief plan. Wildman mentions that Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, actually I think it's Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, was socialized home loans, talking about the government making payments forever for people, making people indebted to the government. Under the Bush administration, they socialized Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, which are government-sponsored, government-backed home loans. So if you want to buy a home, the government will help co-sponsor your loan, for people who aren't familiar with that. And the loans are subsidized by taxpayers. They're very low-interest loans. I wouldn't say they socialized it, but it's been a little while since I reviewed the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and I believe Freddie Mac was going bankrupt. It completely failed towards the end of the Great Recession, as it was said by. We're in the Great Recession now, but Obama's Great Recession and the subprime loan debacle. Dow mentions that it's a good plan, especially if each community has a grassroots chapter. And Dow, that is absolutely what I hope for. That's why, and this is, as you can see, it's as much as it may look like it's a lot. This is only a couple of pages. And if this whole section right here, that's just talking about what the problem is. What's the scope of the problem? What are some of the offers out there to try and deal with it? The actual, and this is just explaining what I just explained. Do we have the ability as local communities to be able to take care of this? So here's where it is. These are all the rules. It's about 1 page long. Exactly what I told you. We're going to get the money from GoFundMe. We're going to use that money to pay to landlords to pay off evictions directly. There is no middleman. We're not sending it to individuals. No one's going to be able to spend it. No one gets over $1,257, and you only get that if you need that amount. If your eviction notice is based on $600, you get $600, not $1,200. It's only what you need up to the amount of $1,257 period, to help our community get rid of evictions. And we can do that immediately. We don't need to wait for an act of Congress. We don't need some politician who wants to get themselves out of trouble because of their sexual assaults or because that they killed people through their policies or the emergency powers they were given. We don't need any of that. You don't have to vote this way or that way for it. It's as simple as this is extra money I have that I can afford to donate and pull together with the rest of my community to help out people in my community. It's that simple. I do hope that we could see hundreds and thousands of these go around. I hope people copy this idea and use this video and say, oh my God, that is a great concept. Here, let me go do that in my community. There is nothing proprietary. There is no business model behind this. This isn't about making a single dime. Nobody makes money on this. This isn't about profit for anyone. There is no benefit. Everyone just helps our community. That's it. It's that simple. Tell me, folks. You tell me. Does that seem like it makes sense? Does that seem like a good idea? Would that help people in your community? Is that going to help everyone? Because I think it will. Do you think it would work? If everyone you know, if everyone in your county decided that here's my extra $5, $10, some people can afford it, here's an extra $1,000, here's the full COVID relief check, whatever the amount is. And if everyone puts it all together and you go one by one and just say, okay, here are the evictions that are here. Here's the legal proof. There is, in fact, an eviction going on. And we are going to take this money, part of that money, and pay that off. And then we're going to take the next amount and pay the next one off and go down the line and just pay them all. Boom. Bring all the people in evictions to square one. They are even. Do you think that will help a community? Do you think that would help to bring up the quality of life? That people will be more encouraged to get jobs, to go to work, to pay their bills, to be a part of the community? Will it help to resolve depression and domestic abuse and drug abuse, which are running rampant right now, and suicide? I think it helps in all of those aspects. And I hope you want to tape this part of the video, you want to use it as a clip and spread it around and say, hey, here's this great idea. Please go right ahead. Share the video and say, go to this part. I think it was about an hour and a half in. Go to this part of the video. Listen to this idea, copy it, and use it. Please do. That's what it's meant for. So, Dalgrim mentions that with the advent of the internet and public sourced funding like Kickstarter, GoFundMe, and more, it actually would be more transparent than a nonprofit charity, which is why it's not a nonprofit and not a charity that is doing it. This is something I'm doing it as a citizen, and why I am willing to show, and I can show complete transparency. Here's the GoFundMe numbers. Here's the confirmed checks of the payments that have made to this landlord, that landlord, for this amount of money every month, every time it's done. Completely transparent. No government is necessary for this. None whatsoever. And I've talked to a bunch of lawyers about this. I talked to a couple of former judges about this. I'm talking to various other people about this, trying to get their feedback. I've spent the entire week working on that. And from what I can tell, it works. Wildman says, I'm from rural area in Missouri. COVID has very little effect on people where I live. I think COVID has if we look at the numbers, overwhelmingly, COVID has very little effect on most people. People get it, 97% survive it. Most people go on with their lives. It's not the Black Plague, but it has, because of COVID, we have seen businesses shut down, forced to shut down. Specific businesses, not Walmart, not Amazon, mom and pop down on the corner, yeah. We have seen a huge financial burden placed on small businesses. Oh, you want to be able to have a gym? Well, here's all the new health codes you have to follow and all the new things you have to install so that you can open up your business, which is going to increase your cost for each customer to be able to use your facilities. How about movie theaters that are just completely closed? Forget about it, they're done. Mom and pop stores, everybody, all the things that they have to do. Plexiglass ain't cheap. And when you think about that, and it causes so many businesses, and this is why virtually every state has somewhere between 10 to 40% of the small businesses have closed forever, which has caused the unemployment rate to skyrocket. And when you're going from 3.5% to, yes, it is currently 6.7, that's a double. Essentially, that's double. Yeah, it's a lot. Wildman says that he means even the economy it had very little impact on, and it didn't affect businesses where he lives. You know what? That's a great thing for Missouri. I'm happy for everybody in Missouri. By the way, I didn't know you were in Missouri. It's great. I'm glad to see that you're with us on the show. I'm happy to hear there, and I know there are many places around the country that have had very little effect. But I can tell you in New York State, it has been absolutely devastating. In New York, in California, in Illinois, Florida, Texas, Washington State. I'm just thinking of a couple of states off the top of my head. New Jersey, Maryland. Absolutely devastating impact. Absolutely devastating impact. Whether a lot of people or very few people have been impacted by COVID, it has destroyed economies, destroyed businesses forever. And it has caused massive unemployment. So I understand why people have fallen behind on their rent in many cases, because they don't have money coming in to pay the bills. And so the answer is, until we can open up our economy, until we have the emergency powers for Governor Cuomo, Governor Newsom, Governor Whitmer, Governor Wolf, until we can stop them from having emergency powers and picking and choosing what is and isn't scientific answers, until we can get to that point, we need to work together as a community to help each other. That's my idea. I mean, and if a community doesn't need it, don't do it. Donate to another community that is. As an example, I'm in the southern tier of New York. I'm in Broome County. I'm going to work on Broome County. And if it winds up, God help me if this could happen, if we pay off everybody who has an eviction in Broome County from donations that we receive from wherever in the world, and we're able to pay everyone's eviction so that all people are brought up to current. And by the way, you can only get this check one time. This isn't a rotating thing. One time, that's it. But once we've done that, and if we were able to remove all the evictions and we had money left over, we would, and no one else is saying, hey, can you help us? Can you do the same idea in Tioga County or in Cortland County or in Shenango County or in Pennsylvania or in New Jersey? If no one's asking us to do that, then we'll send the money back. But if we can, and people are saying, well, we need help too, if someone hasn't tried this idea in their community, then we can use it to go there. I mean, that's the way I see it. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you don't think it's that great an idea. Let me know. And don't forget, you can always call into the program. And that number is 607-242-1582. You can also leave us a text on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. As you can see, we do look, if you're watching the program after the show, after the live stream, Don't worry, we watch all the comments. We do try to respond to all comments. We're happy to help you there. If you can subscribe, like, share, get this idea out there. Wildman says, hysteria and unfounded fear caused the hardest hit affected areas, I think, to be hit as bad as they were. Those politicians acting on emotion and not facts. Absolutely. And we've said that since February of 2020 on this program and in many videos. It's not the Black Plague. We are surviving this. Everyone is surviving it. And it's never going to end. The next thing, as we were talking about it last week, you may not have seen this, Wildman, but in the video we were talking about it, we just found out that there is now the H5N8 avian flu. The bird flu is now able to be transmitted to human beings. It happened in Russia, which means it's going to be, once we get rid of COVID, then we're going to have bird flu. And so you're still going to have to wear a mask. You're still going to have to be social distancing. You're still going to have this fear that something is going to kill you that you can't do anything about. And the government's going to still say, don't worry, we're going to take care of it. As long as you just give us all of your freedom, we'll take care of it. And you'll be safe, even though they can't guarantee that. There's no way they can guarantee that. But that's one of the ideas. So I wanted to share that with everyone. It's something that I've been working on. I'm going to put it together. As I said, it should be up. I expect it's not something that's going to be stylish or fancy, but it's going to be up there, available and out to the public. It's not stylish. It's not meant to be, but it'll be out there. That's my plan, the civilian COVID relief. So we've been talking about Agenda 2030, part of the plan. I've heard about that. For those who haven't, it's a program offered by the UN on how to modify communities on a local and state level around the world to enable a guidance on how those communities grow in the future. And many find that to be something that would enable the government to have too much power and the UN to have too much power over individual lives. It's also been called Agenda 21, as I recall. Agenda 2030 may be an update on that. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. I don't follow it as much. But I do know Agenda 21, which was the same idea as I understood. So, folks, we've been talking about a lot of things today. We've been talking about the Black Superman, which I think is just absolutely stupid and racist. Absolutely stupid and racist. And it's virtue signaling at the height. It's so useless, and I would not support a Black Superman unless there's something that goes with it. You know, a great character, a great story, something that is beyond, he's black now. I don't care. I like Superman when there's a good story. You know, Superman versus Batman, horrible movie. Didn't like it. It wasn't because Batman was white or Superman was white or Wonder Woman is white. I don't care. It was a bad story. Made no sense. Doesn't matter. Change people's colors. Still a bad story. But yet, this is what we're getting. Instead of entertainment, it's politics. And that is worse for everyone. We've got a government that's spending $470 million claiming that it's to help people for COVID. And I've shown you directly, has nothing to do with that. A $15 minimum wage that's supposed to help people with COVID, it has nothing to do with that. If you get, whether you get paid $25 an hour or whether you're getting paid $7 an hour, that's not helping you whether you get or not get COVID-19. It doesn't help if your businesses in your community are closed. It's not going to help anyone. Oh, well, matter of fact, it's even worse. Your business is operating, like in New York State, at 25 to 50% of capacity. They've cut people's hours and they fired people to try and lower their overhead to be able to pay their bills to stay in business. And now you're increasing by double the amount that they have to pay their workers with money they don't have. And that's supposed to help people? It's a great way to get more people unemployed. The CBO numbers that I mentioned from 2017 and 2018, as I recall, that the studies were done, actually 2016 and 2018, they were done by the CBO. Those were in times of a good economy with lower unemployment, when businesses were running at 100%, and they stated that 3.7 million people would lose their jobs in a good economy. Imagine how many people would lose their jobs in a bad economy where businesses are running at 50% and aren't able to pay their bills, and now they have to pay their workers double. This is supposed to help you. This is the government coming to help you. This is the government saying, we're the government and we're going to help you. 1.6 million people are on minimum wage. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the census. 1.6 million people get paid minimum wage. 3.7 million people in a good economy running at 3.5% unemployment. 3.7 million people would lose their jobs. How many people do you think would lose their job in this economy? This is the government coming to help you. Government's wasting money giving hundreds of millions of dollars to organizations that just got hundreds of millions of dollars instead of giving it to you. By the way, every time they do this, your money is worth less. You can buy less with it. More inflation is created. They're adding another 1.9, let's call it $2 trillion. We're going to have $31 trillion in debt. And the amount that you're going to be able to buy for every single dollar that they give you is less than before the last time. Dow mentions that all in the name of sustainability. He's speaking about the Agenda 2030. Agenda 21 merged into 2030 along with the Great Reset. Yes, the Great Reset, as highlighted by Canada's Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau, who, along with many others, believe that we have to bankrupt the world and start over with a brand new system, which is very socialist in its ideology and a stupid idea. You don't raise it. That's not raising. The Great Reset doesn't bring the quality of life up for everybody. It brings it down. It brings everybody to the bottom denominator. It doesn't help people to live better lives. It doesn't improve the quality of life. It does the exact opposite. But it is an equalizer. Dow also says that minimum wage just makes wages a flat utility cost for businesses. Wildman mentions there is now more value in Bitcoin than all printed US dollars. Well, the Bitcoin thing, not really, because there is no asset behind it. You can claim there's an asset sort of behind the US economy, although total unfunded mandates are $127 trillion, so maybe not. But you know what? It's a fair argument. It's a fair discussion. So we've got about another minute or so here, folks. Let me mention, I hope you keep an eye out for my civilian COVID relief plan that we're going to have launched, I expect tomorrow, March 1st. Please keep an eye out for it. Please share this video. Ask other people to look at that section, if not the whole video, to share it, to subscribe, to let other people know about this. And we're going to follow it up with more information as we go forward, because our communities, we as individuals, have the true power in this government, and we can fix our problems. The government never can. It never will. It doesn't even try. We need to get rid of Governor Cuomo and governors like him, like Governor Newsom and Governor Whitmer, who have abused the emergency powers that they were given for this crisis that was amped up beyond belief, and they are harming more people than they supposedly are helping, because the people they are helping are themselves. Governor Cuomo has been helping himself, and he has been shown to be as corrupt as can be. 2 sexual abuse allegations, 16,000 people dead, even as he gets himself an Emmy, gets himself a book deal. I'm sorry, that man needs to go to jail. These are just, and that has nothing, and that doesn't even cover what we were talking about with what's going on, what's being hidden from the American people in terms of what's happening in Syria, what's happening with Iran, what's happening in Iraq, our U.S. troops being engaged in active combat, something that has not been the case for roughly 4 years, and something that's going to get worse as the net world, the peace in the world decreases. And that's a problem, especially since we're not being told about it. We hope that you enjoy this program. And yes, Wildman, I do think Andrew Cuomo is a psychopath. Well, I can't say psychopath. I think it's, what's the other one? Social, I forget the word. Sociopath. That's it. I think he's definitely a sociopath. But folks, I hope you enjoyed the program. I thank you, and we appreciate every week at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, as much as those internet overlords allow us to be able to come out, to listen and have this conversation with you, to talk with you on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, as you can see on screen, and to take your phone calls at 607-242-1582 to hear what you have to say about everything. And even if there is a lag, we keep going, because we will not be silenced. And we're trying to find ways to help our communities. That's what this program is about. Information, conclusions, and ideas to try and help each other. You may not always agree, and that's okay, because this is the First Amendment. You don't have to agree, but we should be able to speak about it. If you have enjoyed the show, if you found it to be informative or enjoyable, please like and share. Please subscribe. Please subscribe, because it helps us to reach more people, to have a wider discussion about all of these issues. And we hope, most of all, that you're all going to be well, and we look forward to seeing you next Sunday, as well as to watch some of the videos we put out throughout the week. I want to thank you all. I hope everyone's going to be well. I'll talk to you soon.